Hello, everyone, and welcome to the April edition of the DeFi Security Summit webinar. In case you haven't heard, this year's DeFi Security Summit will be held in Buenos Aires in November. More info about the venue and the exact dates will come later, so please follow us on Twitter, on Telegram to know all the details. This webinar will talk about operational security, a very hot topic from this year. You've all heard about the Bybit hack, $1.5 billion were stolen. So we'll talk about what is operational security and probably convince you why you're not doing enough to protect yourself. So we have a host of experts on the topic, and I'll pass on the torch to Isaac. Isaac is the founder of Shield3 and an initiative lead in Security Alliance in SEAL.
Yes,
Take
thank
the
you,
stage,
Yuri.
Isaac.
Yes, thank you, Yuri. Very excited to be here moderating today on this great panel we have with Peter Kacherginsky of Blockthread and Pablo and Louis from OPSEC. We'll be hearing a couple presentations first about OPSEC and some case studies, as well as some very practical things that you can do probably even while you're listening to the live stream of how to like locking down some various things or changing some of your behaviors while you're following along. And so we'll have a couple presentations first. First, we'll have Peter, and then Pablo and Louis, and then we'll have a panel discussion afterwards. We'll have a chance for some Q&A. So I will pass first to, again, Peter Kacherginsky, who's the founder of Blockthreat. They work on threat intelligence, and they also help companies develop their comprehensive security programs. So go right ahead, Peter.
Thanks, Isaac. Everyone can see the screen that I'm sharing. All right. Well, in this case, thanks for the intro, and let's dive right in. So diving into the OPSEC portion of Web3, kind of a hot topic, becoming even more hot if you watched my DeFi Security Summit presentation last year with private keys and I guess operational security side accounting for the majority of losses in our ecosystem. So let's do a bit of a deep dive on that, on security practices, a few case studies, and so on. So as Isaac mentioned, Blockthread newsletter and just kind of like VSO is kind of what I'm focusing on these days. Worked a variety of companies, looked at malware from nation state actors from Indian, Federal Reserve System, Coinbase, Spearbit, and so on. So I hope to kind of like combine all that experience in a few slides that I have a chance to share with you today. So first thing we should do is probably talk about definitions. So if you're not coming from a traditional security background, you know, all these words are flying around, OPSEC and AppSec and SecOps. It can all get confusing. What are we actually talking about? So just to make sure we're all on the same page, let's define what is OPSEC. There are various like iterations on the definition, but roughly, OPSEC concerns itself with procedures and policies that we implement to protect sensitive assets from leaks, unauthorized access, vulnerabilities, and so on. So think of like creating a procedure of how you're doing your key signing or how you manage your multi-sig or cold storage to make sure that bad actors cannot get to your precious assets. One key that I want you to pay attention to is that OPSEC is, for the most part, is proactive. This is something that you do, hopefully, before there's an incident. That is in a contrast to the other, like very similar term, which is SecOps. And the way that I define it is more related to incident response. So real-time monitoring, detection capabilities, how you respond to incidents. And think of the difference between OPSEC versus SecOps, where OPSEC is much broader kind of thing that you concern yourself with. You know, I'll show a diagram like all the different subcategories, but the entire security program versus SecOps is more related to like how do you respond to incidents to minimize losses. So OPSEC is more proactive. You do it before the incident. And SecOps is how quickly you can respond to live real-time incidents. So that's much more reactive. And of course, like just to throw it in there, because that's the majority of things that we're focusing on within DeFi security is AppSec. So that's the practice of designing and building and maintaining code, all the bug bounties and code audits and all those things, competitive bug bounties that we have now. This is also proactive, and this is where we concern ourselves the most. So if you think in terms of like the overall pie chart, like the majority of resources that we put in today as the industry is probably AppSec still, because that's what we hear about. Hey, we keep on hearing these smart contract hacks. But as I pointed out in DeFi Security Summit last year, this pie chart needs to follow what the actual threats are and where the losses sit. So we're doing much better focusing on SecOps now. So we have all these awesome monitoring companies that are looking after us and can create alerts and respond. But even more so, we need to dial back and talk about OPSEC. So hopefully what Pablo and I will talk about today will serve as a beginning of that program. So speaking of OPSEC pillars, like what does it concern itself with? A variety of things. As I said, OPSEC is a very broad topic. So key management will show up quite a few times. Access controls to your infrastructure, how you manage your application security, personnel security, endpoint security, how do you lock down your machines, code management, how do you push your code? Is that safe? Are you like doing something that a single developer can wreck your whole protocol? Supply chain, communication security. Pablo has quite a few things to talk about, like how to make sure that we're all on Zoom call. How do you make sure that your Zoom call does not end with your private keys being stolen? And a small overlaps with SecOps. It also talks about some IR procedures, basically some things that you can build and create, kind of like kill switches that can save you in case of a real incident. So the best way to talk about what is OPSEC is just to look at a few case studies. So that's what we're going to do. And when we look at those case studies, we'll point out what are the techniques used, what are the failings, and what can we build to make sure that something like that will never happen again. So on the Radiant incident that happened in October 2024, that's the first one we should discuss. And that's kind of a beginning of a trend of messing with multi-sig signer signatures. So in case you're not familiar, $58 million stolen in October 2024. The initial vector was a fake security researcher sent in a security report from a different hack, like, hey, can you take a look at this security report? You may find this interesting. That security report was actually a piece of malware, which was executed on developer machines. And the rest is history. All of the multi-sig members were eventually compromised, whenever they were submitting transactions and whatever they got from their view of the safe wallet UX was actually backdoored. So by the time they got to their hardware wallets, they were signing something completely different. What's really one thing I want to point out is the initial vector is particularly nasty, because we already know that we should be wary about other people randomly reaching out to us on Telegram and other social media. But the reason why this one was nasty was because this person was acting like a security researcher. In fact, the one persona that was revealed involved in the Radiant hack, Nick L. Franklin, the threat actors, the North Korean threat actors behind this persona, have been developing this persona for a full year, publishing research, publishing advice on how to secure yourself. And then after they built up this persona, they started sending out kind of like these fake malware-laced security reports to other projects. So thank God 1inch folks caught it. But just to point out, like just how dedicated are the folks that we're dealing with. And this attack was attributed to Lazarus. So that's your North Korea, of course. And the particular subgroup was Apple Juice / dangerous password. They all kind of like, some provide malware. So malware was from Apple Juice team, and then the initial infection vector was probably from dangerous password. So they kind of like work together on some of these attacks. But the key lesson from here is that attackers found a way how to deal with hardware wallets and multi-sigs by making developers sign things they did not expect to. And then we have the WYSIRYX, of course, and that's your $235 million stolen. That one is a little bit messy because neither Liminal or WYSIRYX really admit whose fault it is. So Liminal, in case you're not familiar, is kind of like a front end for the safe wallet. So it helps manage the multi-sig interface. It's kind of like you go into safe, but it's much more suited for custody and exchanges and so on. The likely injection vector was probably similar. So most likely, it's again, no one published the full postmortem on either side. Most likely, Liminal front end was compromised. Malicious transactions were injected for signers on the WYSIRYX side who signed it, and then they were compromised. This one was attributed to another subcategory of Lazarus, which is called trader-trader, which are particularly brutal folks responsible for some of the worst hacks in the ecosystem. But again, we're starting to see a trend. North Korean attackers target large protocols with multiple signatures, and then they are trying to substitute transactions that you sign in your hardware wallets with something else. And then, of course, that gets us to the most recent hack, which happened in February, and that's the Bybit/Safe compromise. That one scared the hell out of me because the initial attack vector will sound familiar. Third-party multi-sig manager, safe wallet in this case, was compromised. The initial injection vector was a fake trading app. So that's something very, very frequently that I post about in the newsletter. The compromised developer had full AWS access. Boom, substituted safe front end. In this case, attackers decided just to target Bybit, but you can imagine that every single person who's using Safe Wallet could have been targeted as well. So they just chose the largest fish, so to say, before their attack was discovered. And again, this was attributed to Lazarus trader-trader. So very quickly, there's a common thread here. Like, what are the gaps that are similar across all of these hacks? And you can see like they kind of like build on top of each other. You can see like, hey, like they're experimenting a little bit, and now they're substituting transactions, and then they finally hit the big one. They got the actual safe wallet, and they got the biggest user of the safe wallet. So the gaps are access control authentication. So the safe developer that was compromised, they had full AWS access to upload arbitrary things to the front end. So just one developer was sufficient to compromise the whole thing. Code management, there was no verification of what you're deploying. So you could deploy directly. There's no like code review or something like that. Personnel, like again, I mentioned that the injection vector, the social engineering injection vector was a trading app. So maybe insufficient education about phishing attack vectors. Endpoint security, nothing triggered an early alarm that developers' endpoint was compromised. And then on the exchange side or DeFi protocol side that were compromised, again, like there was a trust assumption into third parties, like, well, Safe Wallet would never be compromised. I should totally trust whatever it's telling me to sign. I should do it. So that was obviously that assumption. Key management, so there was missing insufficient TX verification process. So every time we have to sign something in our hardware keys, there's this blob of text. And until recently, that PC Versaccio started building tools for you to perform this verification, people were just like, whatever, looks right. I'll just run this. Key management controls, like having some kind of time locks or guardians that could, at the last moment, stop this thing. And at last, IR procedures were missing as well on monitoring and kill switch capabilities. So controls, lessons learned from this, what controls we could build from that. There are a lot. So I'll try to go fast through the most critical ones out there. And one, endpoint security. I keep saying, like, you can build the most complex EDR solutions and monitor everything. Just buy your developers or key signers dedicated laptops. Make them really shitty laptops so they don't have any incentive or desire to use them for anything else, like downloading trading apps or doing some kind of job interviews. That's a dedicated machine just for key signing. And that will solve a lot of your problems from the phishing vector. On the key management side, make sure that you have proper transaction simulation and verification procedures. you're getting this blob from an supposedly trusted, but as we learned, it could be compromised front end. You have to have some kind of process to simulate what is the effect of what you're about to sign on your hardware keys. And at last, the key management. So make sure that even if all of this fails and you already signed a transaction, which is about to drain your whole protocol, you have some kind of last ditch effort, like a time lock or a guardian, they can still cache this. Like, well, you just signed a transfer of our entire thing, or you're upgrading our vault to something else. A time lock may be able to save you there. On the exchange side, and also on the safe and liminal side, IR procedures for on-chain monitoring and actually practicing incident response to make sure that you know how to react quickly. Oftentimes I see, like for these projects, there was the initial upgrade and then the drain and the drain and the drain. I wonder if they just caught this early enough, they could minimize some of the losses. Code management and access control. There's no way that you should allow a single developer, which may be a North Korean IT worker or someone else, to single-handedly push production code to some place where it can hurt or result in the theft of your assets. So there needs to be reduction and monitoring of all your cloud admins. All of the code that is being pushed needs to be verified in one way or another. So just really lock things down. So in terms of the other big control is, notice that I specifically chose the sequence of these events, like, you know, the Radiant and the WYSIWYG happened last year, and now we got the big one. If only maybe it's a failing on the security side of DeFi ecosystem. Maybe we're not reaching security teams well enough, but please read the Block Threat newsletter. Please follow the Rec News with detailed analysis of these compromises and extract those lessons. Look at what are the recent hacks, what are the trends that are happening, and see, does this apply to my project? I'm seeing that attackers are substituting hardware wallet transactions. Am I somehow vulnerable to that as well? And if you are, maybe you need to change some things. So in terms of future, just really quickly, the one thing that I've seen recently is someone, a white hat, published a vulnerability in a blockchain explorer. So that's one thing that is concerning to me. Like, imagine how many victims there would be if a blockchain explorer was compromised. What kind of verification we need to prepare for? Supply chain attacks targeting whole chains. So that was the supply chain attack against the Coinbase base chain. We have a once in a generation chance right now. Like, you know, the traditional financial system is falling apart. There's a chance to show users that DeFi is safe. DeFi is a good, solid alternative. So let's not fuck it up. Let's increase trust and make it better. So that's all I have for the presentation. If there are any questions, or maybe we can jump into Pablo's side.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I have some questions that I'll that I took note of that I'll bring up on our panel section in a moment. But for now, I think we're ready to move on with to Pablo and Louis from OPSEC, specializing in operational security audits for protocols and companies and anybody that does on-chain operations. So yeah, take it away, Pablo and Louis.
Hey guys, thank you very much. You're seeing my screen? Okay, perfect. Thank you. So you're gonna continue talking a bit about operational security in Web3, as Peter was started talking. I think that the most important thing to understand is that I believe that 99% of attacks we have been seeing lately, they all start with social engineering, the most important ones, right? And the thing with social engineering is that even if you are the most sophisticated person or the most advanced programmer or whatever, you can be a victim. We can be victims, even security researchers. Now security researchers are being targeted. well, for the person that doesn't know what is social engineering, how I like defining it is a technique that allows an attacker to make the victim do an action that is against their own interest and in the interest of the attacker, right? And as Bruce Schneier says, amateurs hack people, hack systems, professionals hack people, and also Kevin Mitnick used to say social engineering can bypass any technology, right, including firewalls. So today I want to talk about some cases and some things that we can learn from them. The first one that I chose is the one about Parafai Capital. You will see that it's very common to see lots of cases where VCs, journalists, or recruiters, even startups or devs are being impersonated, right? A VC is being impersonated to hack a founder. A recruiter is being impersonated to hack a dev. A journalist is being impersonated to hack some person that is perhaps an influencer in Twitter. A dev is impersonated to hack someone from human resources, or a startup is being impersonated to hack a VC, right? Now we're going to see first the Parafai Capital case and what we can learn from it. So this influencer, this guy, DeFi Sart, gets contacted by someone named Colin Metcalf. He says, okay, this is a verified account, right? But as we can see here, this is something very important, not followed by anyone that you're following. If you see in Twitter that an account is not being followed by anyone that you're following and is verified, the most common thing is that that account is a scam. But well, this guy said, okay, let's check the credentials for this guy. And he said, okay, verified followers. And he was being followed by all the other members from Parafai Capital with verified accounts, right? What's the issue with this? All of them, they were all fake, right? Being verified in Twitter is a sign of being, it's more of a sign being, it's more a sign of being a scammer than from being like a real legit person. So they tell him that they want to do some partnership to work with Layer 3, Coin98, and Polymarket. He checks that these companies were really invested by this VC because Parafai Capital really exists. They start talking in Telegram, and in Telegram they say, hey, we would like to invite you to a Slack channel, right? So they send him a link to a Slack. He gets to the Slack, and he says this server error, right? The first thing that we have to see here is that, well, first of all, as we saw, this person should have verified who he was talking to. And I believe that the only way to verify if you're talking with someone who is legit is to ask for the corporate email, for the company email, send them an email, and they have to reply back, right? But well, he didn't do that. He was sent a Slack invite. He clicked on it. He sees this server error. What we have to learn from here is that real Slack invites start by join.slack.com, and this one started with app.slack.com. So he said, hey, I'm seeing this error when I want to get to your Slack channel, and they tell him, oh yeah, this happened to a guy last week. Please check this Reddit post where they explain how to fix this. So he's sent to this Reddit post that had many upvotes, many comments. It seemed to be legit with 5 steps, like test your network connection, do this, do that. And in step number 4, check to make sure that your drivers are up to date. Often this error occurs because of blah, blah, blah. And it gives them a link to the FlyUI driver. This guy goes to the FlyUI driver website, checks for updates. They tell him that he has a pending update for that driver. He's taken to GitHub. He downloads a driver, he installs it, and you will imagine what happened. His laptop was completely infected, private keys gone, cookies gone, sessions gone, passwords gone, important files gone, everything gone, right? One more case I want to see. One more thing that I want to add to this. We have to be really, really careful. What I really like about this case is that there were many steps before being infected, right? First, being contacted in Twitter, then you talk in Telegram. Through Telegram, they send you to Slack. From the error in Slack, you are taken to Reddit. From Reddit, you are taken to a website from a driver, and from the website from the driver, you're taken to GitHub. So there are so many steps that the person starts like not seeing the direct connection between what they are doing and the person that they were talking to in the first step, right? And the other thing is that we should be really careful because I'm sure that we will see an evolution of these cases where imagine that instead of showing you server error, I would have shown you. I imagine I was a threat actor, server error E5314. So you search for that error in Google and you get to a Reddit post that I have optimized to be in the first result of Google. You get there, you get infected. The same, right? So we have to be very, very careful. First of all, to checking who we are talking to, and second thing, never, ever, ever downloading anything, right? Well, one more case that is in some way similar to this one. Elusive Comet. For sure, many of you have heard about this one. I got to know about this one some months ago when I received an email inviting me to a podcast from Aureon Capital, right? And I said, Aureon Capital, okay, this is strange. I started checking on them. And what did I find? That they had a seemingly legit website. They had a seemingly legit Twitter account with 44K followers, but not followed by anyone that you're following. If you have 44K followers and you are not being followed by anyone that I am following, that I follow more than 2K security researchers, you are totally in scam. But let's see all the infrastructure that they created. They had Aureon Capital website and Twitter. Aureon Capital LinkedIn profile. They created Aureon News, the website about crypto news. They then created the on-chain podcast with a Twitter profile, with a website, and with a YouTube channel. What's the idea about all of this? That you see so much stuff with a nice design, as websites, this and that. You start trusting, right? The problem is when we trust someone or something. These guys, as Peter was saying, will invest all the time in the world that they need. They can invest 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 months, 1 year, whatever they need to gain your trust. And when they get your trust, there is when the hack will happen. How did the hack happen in this case? They sent you a calendar link, real calendar link for you to coordinate a call. When you went to the call, it was a Zoom call, a legit Zoom call. And in the middle of the call, they tell you, hey, share us your screen so you can show us something related to your work, whatever. You share your screen, like I am doing right now. And they say, oh, we cannot see what you're sharing with us. There's some error. We are behind the firewall in China, whatever. And they say, okay, we are going to request to see your screen. And they send you this, right? Zoom is requesting remote control of your screen. Perhaps anyone here would say, hey, but here they are telling you that you are going to give remote control of your screen. Why would you do this, right? Why would you give remote control of your device? This is kind of obvious. But these guys think about everything, right? So they may tell you, hey, the podcast is about to start in 2 minutes, or we need to see this right now, or whatever. They will use any technique or excuse that they need in order for you to feel that you're late, that you're doing something wrong, or this is kind of urgent, and you just say, hey, I approve. When you approve this, what we all think is that, okay, these guys now have control of your screen and that they open your command line and they put some command or whatever, but no, it seems that there is a vulnerability in Zoom that allows to run remote code when you give this kind of permissions. So they basically infect your device and you have no idea about this. And as we saw in the other cases, again, private keys gone, passwords, sessions, everything.
Yeah, I want to add something Pablito on this one. Unfortunately, we met many people that fell for this one. What was surprising is, as you can see on the right, none of them that initiated the calls were sharing their camera. So it's a first red flag. But also, we're gonna see more and more advanced scenarios. We've ever seen people having face like mask using AI. So they were potentially spoofing someone's identity. So you need to be extremely careful. And in this case, I remember they were asking the person to share their screen. And at this exact moment, they were them requesting to have a remote access on your machines. So you think you're doing something, but they were displaying the pop-up. So you have just 1 second, you think you're sharing your screen. So you click on the blue button, of course, and then you're trapped. And this was very sophisticated because the malware that you ended up downloading on your machine from this scenario, it was installing a keylogger where everything you were typing down from your keyboard, from your laptop, were stolen. We had someone that lost access to his password manager where he had seed phrases, he had recovery backup codes and everything. Imagine today, if you're using a password manager, your master password is compromised. You need to have incident response plans, you need to have backup codes, cold accounts, etc. Pablo will tell you more about this.
Hey, thank you, Louis. Yeah, something important about this. I will see some what are some of the things that we can learn from these two first cases, right? First of all, is always verify who we are talking to and be extremely paranoid about this, right? Even if someone that I know, like Peter or Isaac, send me an email from a new address, or someone that I met in an event sends me a telegram or whatever, I always verify, right? Even if I am not suspecting anything, right? The idea is not that we verify who we are talking to if it seems that is if I suspect in some way. No, I should always do it, right? Always. And remember that the best way to do this is to ask for a company email, send them an email, and having them reply to you. Then second thing, as Peter was already saying, I think that compartmentalization is key. And this applies to lots of stuff, but especially I think that we should use or dedicated devices, as Peter was saying, for important stuff like signing or verifying transactions or doing deployments, or at least having virtual machines, right? So if I am gonna have only one computer for some reason, and I cannot have a dedicated device, I could have a virtual machine, right? It doesn't have the same level of security as having a second device, but it's a bit better. So inside the virtual machine, you can do stuff like having installed Telegram, Twitter, Discord, and this kind of stuff. So if someday I download something, I share something, I click on some link or whatever, the damage will be contained inside the virtual machine. It's very rare for a malware to be able to get out of the virtual machine. It could happen, but it's very rare. Then most people that work in security and developers don't like this, but given our experience in what we see with Louis daily, and what we see is that they are infecting everyone. It doesn't matter how sophisticated you are. I think that using a firewall and or using an EDR is very important. Why? Most importantly, the firewall. We are used to saying, okay, a firewall protects me from inbound attacks, right? So if someone wants to attack my laptop, the firewall will stop it. I think that the firewall is key for these cases in the other way, right? For outbound. So if someday, for some reason, I install some malware, right? and that malware wants to exfiltrate, or so let's say take my my cookies for sessions, my passwords, my private keys, whatever, to a command and control server, they won't be able to do it because the firewall will stop it, right? So the firewall will be something that will protect you in the event that you get infected. And the other thing regarding calls and all of this stuff is they will many times tell you that the app that you are using, Zoom, Google Meet, Teams, whatever, is not working because they are in China or whatever, and they tell you, hey, let's use this other tool. Never do that. If you are comfortable using Zoom, use Zoom. If you're comfortable using Google Meets, use Google Meets. If someone wants to meet with you and they cannot use either Google Meets or Zoom, don't meet with that person. It's simple as that. Don't use any other tools that are not, let's say, popular as these ones. And I personally recommend to use Google Meet that doesn't ask you to install anything, right? This is, I mean, we try not to recommend. We sometimes recommend a specific software, but here everyone has to choose what they want to use. But Lulu, for example, is a firewall developed by Objective-C, that is a non-profit foundation that develops security software for Mac, open source security software for Mac. So perhaps if you use a Mac and you don't have a firewall aside from the one that comes from Mac, that just for you to know, by default, the Mac OS firewall is disabled. Lulu, I think that it's a nice option. Okay, one more case. So I have time? Yeah, a bit. So Twitter phishing, or also known as why we should stop using TOTP apps, right? That's normal 2FA. So I will go kind of fast with this one, but a big Twitter account from a protocol receives a notification from Twitter saying that someone had connected to their account. This was obviously phishing, as you can see here, account/twitter.com. Account.twitter.com instead of twitter.com, but perhaps you're on mobile, it's late or whatever, this arrived in your inbox, you don't realize it's a phishing, you click on secure your account, your ex account now, you are taken to this website. This website, you could change the username here and it will automatically take the photograph from this account into the phishing website. So I did it with mine as an example. It will ask you for your password, you put your password, it says that it's wrong, to put it again, you put it again. It asks you for your 2FA code, right? And when you put your 2FA code, as I'm putting in this example, and you put confirm, what they are doing is that there are two options. In the back, you have an operator, right? That is in real time trying to log in Twitter. And when you put your 2FA code, they are also putting it in their real Twitter website, or this is just done automatically with a proxy. But the thing is that you are taken to this fake screen, as I'm seeing here, and on the other side, you have someone that has gained complete access to your account, okay? So what is important about this case? Given the cases that we are seeing daily, we think that 2FA must change completely, right? First of all, SMS is obviously not an option. We are not going to talk about that, but we already know what SIM swap is. This is kind of obvious. But what is not so obvious is that TOTP apps like Google Authenticator, Authy, Microsoft Authenticator, Aegis, whatever, all those codes are phishable, right? So if you use those 2FA apps, but someday, for some reason, you enter them in a phishing website, your account will be compromised, right? And it doesn't matter how sophisticated we are, every one of us, all the persons that are here connected today and watching this, eventually we are all going to fall in a phishing website and we are going to put our credentials, believe me. It's just a matter of time and how sophisticated they are and how targeted they are. Then what should we use? YubiKeys, right? YubiKeys are good. We think that they are the only option for doing 2FA, but they must be configured properly, right? YubiKeys have many ways they can be configured. but basically there are only two ways that that are secure and that those codes cannot be phished, right? Those are the FIDO2 mode, right? And FIDO U2F, right? When you use this, either one of these options for each website, when you that you want to log in, you create a pair of public and private keys, right? And so these codes cannot be phished, right? So we really encourage everyone that in important accounts, you remove SMS, you remove 2FA apps, you only put UE keys, 3 of them, right? You have many models. You should always have at least 2, one as primary and the other one as a backup, because they cannot be backed up. So you need to have 2 configured at least, and to configure them properly with FIDO2. If your YubiKey is not asking you for a PIN every time you use it, it's not properly configured, right? One last thing, and we go for the panel and questions regarding this. Passkeys. Now that you are talking about 2FA, passkeys are 10x better than passwords because they cannot be phished, they cannot be shared, they cannot be repeated, they cannot be stolen from the user's device, they cannot be stolen from the service where you sign up. Because in every service where you set up passkeys, a pair of public and private keys is generated, right? And then this is protected by the biometrics from your device. But the big issue with passkeys, and this is very important, is that if you synchronize your passkeys with your iCloud account or with your Google account, or you save them in the password manager, that's not in my opinion, that's not a passkey anymore. It's better than passwords, but that's not a secure passkey. The only way where you should store passkeys is in devices that do not do synchronization or inside a YubiKey. Okay, I think that we can now go to the panel section and to see the questions.
Yep, thank you very much, Pablo. And I've got a few questions prepared for you all, and I think we also have some that are coming from the audience. But a couple of things, I think I've been thinking personally lately about what I've been noticing like on my devices, and I'd say that for a while I was getting maybe like 20 or 30 attempts to reset my Microsoft password every day, and lately in the middle of the night at like 2 in the morning, or I'll wake up and I'll see that I have like 6 or 7 attempts on my Google account to reset. Is that a sign that something has already gone wrong, or if I like am diligent in saying like, no, this wasn't me? And should I always go in and say, no, this wasn't me every single time? Because I'm always like worried that I'm going to open the notification and accidentally click, yes, this was me. Like, what are some of the risks around like kind of interacting with those like password reset things that come in when we're not expecting them? And yeah, open to either of you guys, Peter or Pablo. Yeah, Peter, go ahead.
I can go. I've been getting those messages from Microsoft and Google nonstop. Basically, it's a security trade-off by all these companies to be user-friendly, that if you are a legit user and you try to reset it, they'll send you a message. But it's basically a very low friction way. Attackers don't need to know your password or anything else. It's just when you go through the standard like dialogues of resetting recovering access to your account, they will generate that email for you, the recovery email. And if you click yes, then that's what they're trying to get you for, is that if you say like, yeah, that was me, let's recover the password, then they'll be able to pick it up from the other side. So that said, that if you don't do anything, then they're not necessarily going to be able to get anything. So the question is like action versus inaction. The fear of action is that it could also be a phishing email, right? They can craft a nice message for you to click on, and it could be even unrelated to Google, but just like some kind of CSRF type exploitation scenario where it's just one click is enough. So safely ignoring is fine, I think. What do you guys think? And then if you're really paranoid, as I was, I had a freak out a few days ago when I got the Google message. Go into a panel, see what's going on, and then say no. But I think for default users, if you receive messages like that at 2 a.m. and you're tired or you're at a party, just ignore it. don't make a mistake.
Nice. And would a
Pablo, Luis,
YubiKey
what do you
help you?
think?
Like if I had a YubiKey on my Google account, which I think I might, would that also, like, if with a YubiKey, can somebody still go in and like do those requests of like reset my password, or would they also
They'll still,
necessarily have to have my?
yes. Well, they'll still generate that recovery email. But there'll be an extra step further on, but you'll still get the spam, which is annoying as hell. So again, this is like usability versus security. So don't freak out and ignore, I think.
Yeah, I
What do you
think
guys
that
think?
a nice exercise that we don't always do is like just open an incognito window and try to recover access to your account. And for sure, there will be something that you say, I didn't know that this was happening. I didn't know that I had a PIN in Google. I didn't know that I had this phone number. I thought I had removed all my phone numbers. I didn't know. Like the recovery process from accounts, they change very usually, and they are not as good as we think. Then, regarding what you asked, Isaac, regarding YubiKeys, if, for example, in your Google account, something that we see very often, you have 3 YubiKeys, but then you also have the SMS as an option for 2FA. Well, then they will go for the SMS, or they will go for the recovery email that you had in Gmail, that it's a Hotmail account that you have not logged in 8 years and that does not exist anymore, and that they can perhaps register again because it was free. So that's the first thing. And then regarding these notifications that we get, specifically with Microsoft accounts, if anyone goes to the logs from a Microsoft account, you will see like 20 or 30 attempts daily. That's mainly from bots. But there's also something called multi-factor authentication fatigue attack. And it's that, for example, if you have a Microsoft account that is passwordless, so you only log in, just put in the OK in Microsoft Authenticator, I will try to do that like 300 times, really 300 times. So you get a pop-up, a pop-up, a pop-up, a pop-up, and eventually you cannot believe this. People will just say, okay, yes, so I don't see the pop-up anymore. And the person is logged in. That you won't believe it, but it works. And
Nice. So
then
that's good
last
to.
thing
Oh yeah, go ahead.
and last thing regarding this, if you're seeing notifications of someone trying to reset access to your account, it could be a bot, but it could be also someone trying to understand what are your accounts, what's tied to what. So that's a warning. I would prefer thinking someone is investigating and seeing how to attack me. So I would dedicate some time to leverage and to enhance my security.
Nice.
Just a heads
Yeah,
up,
go
all
ahead.
of us, I was going to say, all of us are most likely, most people on this call, we are on some mailing list, probably Ledger, that got hacked a few years back. So we're all there. They all have our email addresses, maybe some other leak that happened as large as Ledger. So as Pablo said, it could be that they are targeting you, or it could be they're going down this list. Like if you recall, like what was the email that I used for that time back in the day when I was registering Ledger or whatever other thing that was leaked, you're probably on that list. So
Yeah, it's made me
Yeah,
quite
exactly.
paranoid. I even got like a request from my local gym, like my local gym saying like, hey, we have a new user agreement for you to sign. And I went in and was like, wait,
nice.
this email didn't actually come from the gym. What if this is, and it turns out it was legit, but it was just like I think I actually went to the front desk of the gym and I was like, guys, your emails should come from your own domain. Like
I would be careful about that. I was actually just reading. Let me see what this attack was. They did start crafting this DKIM replay attacks. So I would research a little bit on that. They started spoofing actual domains too. So even if you see it's coming from, let's say, Google, you know, there's an approach now where they can try to spoof your a legitimate domain as well. So guys, just be paranoid as hell.
be paranoid,
Yeah,
yeah.
I agree. I think it would be very nice, Peter, if you can share that link in the chat. We saw that Twitter post
Oh
not so
yeah,
long ago about the emails that were signed by Google but were not coming from Google. And also, I think
shared in
5
the
minutes
chat.
ago, perfect. Isaac, you shared the phishing dojo, which is a CTF challenge to check fake phishing campaigns. There's like the first part that is about phishing emails and then phishing and then spoofing transactions. I think it's a must for anyone working in Web3 to pass that test. And yeah, when it comes to phishing, I think anything that asks for credentials or fast actions, it's a red flag. You should ask yourself, what if I don't do anything? Are you really in danger? And most of the time, as Peter said, if you don't do anything, you'll be okay. Why are they saying there is a security alert, or you should do that to update your account or to make your account safer? Most of the time, there isn't. And I think while YubiKeys offer today the highest level of protections, unfortunately, we still see scenarios. I'm thinking about Twitter, where you can, if someone sends you a link on Twitter, delegate basically you a malicious application can act on behalf of you, and this you can have YubiKeys, you can have 2FAs, you can have backup codes. They will have a remote, basically, control of your account. We saw that recently many times. So I would say on Twitter, never click on a link. As Pablo showed, the link can be embedded and hide something else. It can be a totally different link. And you should check, especially on Twitter, what are the applications that have access to your account? What are you sharing with other applications? We saw a funny scenario with Pablo where it was a malicious application called Twitter for browser with a very beautiful logo from Twitter. And the attackers added like a huge padding, and people were not able to see the revoke button. It was a funny one.
Nice. On another,
one
like,
thing
just kind
before
of
we
like,
move on,
oh, go ahead.
a critical thing that just so we don't have full sense of security here, YubiKeys are great, but if you have malicious code running on your machine, that's game over, because attackers don't need your YubiKey to hijack the session. So if you already are authenticated somewhere, or you're already in your AWS environment or whatever, and you're in, attackers can either commandeer your existing browser session or steal session cookies or whatever, and do all the same stuff. So just to be mindful that YubiKey is good for phishing defense, but it's not a thing like, oh, I have YubiKey, so I can just I can just download the Zoom desktop thing right now, so I'll be fine. So just to be mindful of that. Don't get negligent.
Yeah, and if we think about like how this malicious code gets onto our computers, I've been curious, like, how should we be thinking about PDFs? Because, like, as someone that sends like sometimes reports to clients about like here's our findings or whatever, like what are the safest ways to actually send? And like if I get a PDF and I'm on my Mac and I open it in preview, does that have an ability to escape and can compromise my computer? So yeah, what's our level of paranoia around like PDFs and sending documents?
Well,
Go ahead.
very short, for sending documents, for example, we use DocSend, right? Because we were telling our clients that don't open PDFs, and then we were sending guides and reports in PDFs, and we said no. Louis said we cannot keep on sending PDFs, so we use DocSend for that. And then if someone sends us a PDF, that we try to ask everyone not to do it. Option number one is open it with Google Drive, but you have to you can from the email in Gmail just save it in Google Drive and open it from there. So it will be the render will be done in Google Drive, and it should not have an issue. It shouldn't be an issue for you. No, and then another option that we use sometimes is to have a dedicated virtual machine for that kind of stuff and opening it there. But I think that Peter will be able to give more details on this.
I would be even more paranoid. Like anytime you're downloading any file externally and you're running it, I don't care if it's a an image or whatever, you're running some kind of executable code. So preview is much safer than full-blown Acrobat client. So that's already a win. Running in an isolated environment is still much better. Running inside Google Drive is even better because they strip out whatever nasty scripts that could be embedded inside. So I'm leaning towards like there are a few third-party solutions that will simply take, you can upload your PDF file there and they'll just generate a nice image for you that you can view. I have to think if I remember what they're called. I have it written down somewhere. So Google Drive would be good, but preview is better, but just be wary. Like whatever you do, whatever you're downloading externally, try not to run it on your desktop, on your actual OS.
Nice. So maybe if can you upload a PDF to Google Drive, generate a shareable link, and that's a bit of a safer way to transmit them rather than just sending the raw file?
Yeah, exactly. And in fact,
Yeah.
you can configure individually in Google Drive that that file cannot be downloaded, for example. So they can only view it, and that's
Okay.
it. Anyway, infected PDFs, like two things. As Peter said, a corrupt reader is pretty dangerous. So if you have a corrupt reader, it must always be updated. But anyways, PDFs that are infected are not so common because they are expensive, right? Usually they are like 0 days or nearly, but they exist, right? They are not so common, but if you're a high target, you for sure you will receive them. Yep.
Nice. Now let's imagine that like some of this bad code has gotten onto my machine. Like maybe I joined the Aurora interview, I don't know, security webinar and gave them remote access to my machine. If I noticed it right away and I just like, I don't know, close my laptop or shut down my computer, like what are the immediate steps if somebody thinks that they might have messed up, what are the things that they should do absolute first? And can I just, if I like close my computer and throw it in a trash can, or like what are my next steps? Because I've had like friends I messaged, they're like, oh, I was talking to this person, they were gonna give me a grant for like weeks, and then they got on and suddenly like oh crap, I think I downloaded something wrong. Like what is like step one once you think you've messed up?
Let's brainstorm this, guys. So I think shutting off the internet would be step one. That will probably cut off remote access to your machine, so they can't. Whatever they already exfiltrated, that's gone.
Mhm.
Step number two,
Jumping in.
open a SIL 911
Mhm.
ticket.
Yeah, probably yeah. Reach out to on a different device. And is it like cross-contaminated? Like if I download something bad on my Mac, is my iPhone wrecked now? Or like how does that kind of stuff like I know that some people are like, oh, okay, is my Google account now like gone for good? Like how do you think about that?
No, I think that was I guess step number two, dial seal 911. Step number three is if you have a phone or alternative device where you do have those login sessions, now you have to have, well, since we are talking about this, start building a plan. Like what would be your recovery plan, where you go through prioritized list of accounts and then sequentially go in, log out all sessions, change passwords, go in, log out all sessions. So probably you should start with your password manager if you're using something external, then proceed to your definitely like email accounts, because everything else gets opened up by email accounts, so your Gmail, Outlook, whatever you guys are using, and then proceed to where your immediate assets can be lost. So maybe your banks or something like that. Just because you're a crypto person doesn't mean that you don't have a bank account with something you should protect.
Nice.
So you will have a very like, hopefully the SEAL folks will be on your side, supporting you, but you'll have a dedicated day, probably, or maybe weeks. And you'll sequentially go one after another, start logging out and changing things.
Nice. Let's get
Yeah,
towards final thoughts and comments.
Well,
So yeah, one more from each, and then we'll have to get towards the end. But yeah, go ahead.
okay, I'll start. What I was gonna say is that obviously, when you get your computer infected, your key store file with the private keys from your hot wallets is stolen, and in a matter of minutes, that assets are gone. So you have to move all your assets to a new secure address. Then, final thought. I would say that we have to be really, really, really paranoid, more paranoid than we really are. I'm usually very paranoid. Last week I had a call with Peter, and after that call, I became like highly more paranoid than I was, luckily, and it made me work all the weekend.
Sorry,
And then
not
the other
sorry.
thing is, as I always say, like everything is a scam until proven otherwise, right? If we have that mindset that I cannot trust anyone and that everything could be a scam, I think that we are in the good path.
Yes. Any last thoughts, Peter, Louis?
No, I think it was very interesting. Unfortunately, SAFE was a very unfortunate event, but I think many people are realizing the importance of YubiKeys and everything we are doing, and we learn from such hacks.
Cool. Yuri, would you
Yeah,
like to
what
close us
Lou
out? Or go ahead, Peter.
Oh, I was gonna say, adding on to what Louis said, like we have an amazing community. From thanks for organizing this mini webinar. We have conferences. Folks in this community are very good at sharing knowledge. But the fact that Bybit happened with previous incidents, which were kind of related, there were some lessons and indicators that, you know, maybe either I think we're sharing knowledge fairly well. Maybe we need to package that knowledge better. But at the same time, security teams for all, not even if you don't have a security team, but DeFi protocols in general need to constantly be vigilant and see what are the trends, who's getting compromised, and learn. Have a weekly meeting on a Friday afternoon at lunchtime where you sit down and ask, hey, who got hacked this week? How did it get hacked? Is that applicable to us? Should we change something? So just do this fun exercise while having lunch. And if something does show up where, hey, like this is a similar project, we also use Safe Wallet and we also sign with hardware wallets. And that's how they got hacked. It probably could target us as well. Then you have an action item to step in and start working on it.
Nice. Yuri, would you like to close this?
All right. Yes. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in and listening. Special thanks to Isaac, Peter, Pablo, and Louis for making us all hopefully a bit more paranoid and aware of potential social engineering that could be done to us. Keep tuning in and following us for more information in the future about the location, the venue, and the date of DeFi Security Summit 2025. And see you next month. Bye-bye.
See you guys.